I've always driven through this place, always caught glimpses of something hidden, batteries tucked in trees, trails that vanished behind fences. But like most people, I was just passing through, too busy to learn, too fast to feel. Let me take you on a ride, not just down the road, but into the layers beneath it. I've always shot through the MacArthur Tunnel, chasing time, chasing light, but I've never stopped to ask what was just beyond the guardrail. I've driven Lincoln Boulevard more times than I can count. It's a scenic route that shows the Golden Gate and the cliffs beyond the bridge. There's a lot to explore, a lot I want to show you. Not just the places, but the history beneath. This is just a tour of what's intended to come. As we move past Fillmore, Sacramento Street climbs gently through Laurel Heights, marked by Edwardian and mid-century apartment buildings, where stately homes and manicured gardens reflect early 20th century affluence. This area was shaped by post-1906 fire reconstruction and the rise of automobile culture, with wider streets and detached homes designed for upper-middle-class families. This bike, the R002, it's not just a ride, it's a tool, a bridge, a way to stop renting someone else's path and start reclaiming my own. I used to be a downhill mountain biker. I used to be a skydiver. I thought those days were over. But this ride, this loop, is the beginning of a progression. This footage is stitched from different days, different moods. You'll see the sun shift, the fog roll in, people vanish. That's not a glitch. That's the rhythm of memory. This bike features power and pedal assist buttons, some turn signals I've installed, a control panel, a camera I've installed, a shifter, a classy bell, and the most important feature, me. Most people never stop here. They drive past. They don't know what's hidden in these trees, but I do. This is my tour, my innovation. To explore together, to ask questions, to suggest routes, to reclaim trails, one ride at a time. I don't have fancy gear, no drone, no camera 360, just a few repurposed skydiving cameras and a bike with a battery that barely makes the loop. Once Arguello Boulevard crosses into the Presidio through Arguello Gate, it enters a corridor rich with layered military, ecological, and civic history. accumulating in the panoramic perch of Inspiration Point. This precious land deserves better gear, better footage. You deserve better videos. That will come in time. Opened in 2001, Inspiration Point was the first scenic overlook built in the Presidio's new era as a national park. And it is quite beautiful. The overlook was designed to offer a distinctly Presidio view. From here, I can see the houses I just rode through, the Palace of Fine Arts, Alcatraz. I've always wondered what it is like to stand here. Now I know. Well, back to it then. That's an automated car. It drives without feeling. I ride with intent. I placed cameras along the way, on signs, in bark, on boxes, each one watching me reclaim a trail I thought I'd lost. Now I ride. Not far, not fast, but far enough to begin again. These residencies, tucked into the Riley and Covey neighborhoods, were built between 1909 and 1932 for enlisted men and officers stationed here. Back then, this wasn't a scenic overlook. It was strategic ground. The troops who lived here operated coastal artillery batteries, guarded the Golden Gate, and trained for wars abroad. Today, the same porches that once framed military disciplines now host quiet mornings and bikes like mine. The Presidio's transformation from garrison to neighborhood is layered. Spanish, Mexican, and American flags have all flown here, but the road, this ride, it's ours. Reclaimed. The road bends west towards Battery Canfield, once a line of defense, now a quiet stretch of reclaimed asphalt. This route skirts the upper Presidio, where the land once bristled with military infrastructure, barracks, training grounds, and artillery posts designed to guard the Golden Gate. The Arguello Gate was one of the main entrances to the Presidio when it was an active U.S. Army post. It served as a key access point for officers and dignitaries heading towards the main post and residential quarters. By the 1990s, the Presidio Trust began restoring native grasslands and removing non-native trees. This ecological shift allowed endangered species like Presidio clarkia and Raven's manzanita to thrive. This is Immigrant Point, not marked, not labeled, but it's here, where the land meets the bay, and the stories shift. Soldiers once guarded this edge. Immigrants once watched it from ships, wondering if they'd be allowed in. There is no plaque, no monument. Just a bend in the path and a view that used to be off limits. But this is a threshold, a place of arrival, of exclusion, of reclamation. This road once traced the edge of defense. Batteries lined the bluff, watching the Pacific for threats that never came. The trees grew wild, the fences rusted, but the line held. This road once carried cars, military, municipal, civilian. But now it's quiet, reclaimed. A shared street reserved for bikes and walkers. The asphalt remains, but the purpose has shifted. This stretch didn't need a monument. It became one by subtraction. The fog doesn't just pass through. It scores. Cold, wet, and salted by the Pacific. It shapes everything it touches. Trees bend, metal flakes, paint peels. The wind carries corrosion like a whisper. The elements don't ask permission. They carve, they claim, and still the edge remains. But this place holds, decade after decade, through storms, salt, and silence. It endures, not untouched, but unyielding. This path threads through trees planted for windbreak, not beauty. Eucalyptus, cypress, imported but now rooted. Their scent is sharp, their shade is fractured. These bunkers weren't meant to be seen, buried in the bluff, sealed tight, now just doors in the dirt. Graffiti, rust, silence.
There's a door to nowhere. It's just built into the hill. It's probably just overgrown. You can probably see it better today. Graffiti everywhere.
Battery Godfrey stood watch over the Golden Gate, ready for threats that never came. The guns are gone, but the silence they left behind still echoes. This sign shows what once stood here. Steel, concrete, intention. A reminder that even peace was built on preparation. This is where the bluffs break, where the batteries once stared down the horizon, where the steel met salt and silence. The edge isn't just a view, it's a memory of what was guarded, of what was feared, of what never came. I stop here, not to look back, but to feel the wind, to let the past settle, and the present stretch wide. This white building, it was built for defense. Now, it's just watching the light. The Overlook wasn't built for defense. It was built for perspective, a place to see what was once hidden, to stand where watchmen once stood, and simply look. The wind still cuts, the salt still clings, but the view holds. It always has. Two cypress trees frame the stairs, planted to line up with the bridge. This overlook sits on former artillery ground. The Presidio, once a military post, is now part of a national park. Sightlines, history, silence. This is where the ride meets the myth. The batteries below, the bridge ahead, the Pacific beyond. Everything that was once guarded is now revealed. Heading up the trail, I pass in front of the overlook stairs. Battery Godfrey runs along this ridge, built in the 1900s to guard the bay. From here, the Golden Gate Bridge cuts across the horizon. Artillery once faced the ocean. Now it's just wind, rust, and silence. This battery once guarded the mouth of the bay. Its guns trained on the horizon, its silence now louder than its fire ever was. The Presidio's defenses weren't scattered, they were deliberate. Batteries aligned by range, terrain, and threat. This sign sketches the logic. a ledger of intent. The gate stretches wide beyond it, nearly 2 miles of steel holding back the Pacific. It's not just a landmark, it's a barricade. To the right, a structure tucked into the bluff. Fenced, functional, silent. It's a part of the periphery now, still watching, still holding its place. I ride past, the bridge waits ahead, but this moment belongs to the margins. Down here, it's all shadow and vibration, the part that holds. It hums above, tires, wind, weight. The bridge doesn't rest, it resonates. From the bridge's shadows, I climb towards Battery Lancaster. Wind, salt, and stone converge here. The hillside carries echoes of the past. Just a glimpse this time. We'll return. The pedestrian path begins here, marked, worn, and always moving. Just beyond, the roundhouse still stands. Coffee now, not command. At the toll plaza, although there are booths, there are no workers, just sensors and memory. The gatekeepers are gone, but the gate remains. To the left, Highway 101 cuts across the Golden Gate Bridge going north. Here, the bridge dominates the landscape. Opened in 1937, it was the longest suspension span in the world. It was built during the Depression, painted international orange, and engineered to survive 100-mile winds. Below, the bay funnels out into the Pacific. Above, cables stretch 740 feet high. It's not just a crossing, it's a monument to risk, scale, and performance. From here, the bridge feels close enough to touch, but it's what's beneath, that's what draws me. Rolling out from Battery Lancaster, the echoes of the coastal defense fades into the rhythm of the bike path. The concrete gives way to shoreline air, where every pedal stroke carries the memory of watchtowers turned to landmarks. Ahead, Coast Guard Point awaits, framed by the light and the city silhouette, a reminder that even fortifications can soften into vistas. Fort Point, tucked into the shadows of the span. Granite, fog, defiance. We'll get there soon. These bluffs held more than views. It held the Presidio's earliest defenses, brick and earth artillery positions carved into the hillside in the late 1800s, predecessors to the named Escott batteries farther east. These early emplacements never received formal names, but they guarded the Golden Gate decades before Slaughter, Baldwin, Sherwood, or Blaney were built. I didn't know they were here, but that's the point. The Presidio keeps revealing itself. Long Avenue drops through the bluff, past batteries, beneath the bridge, towards the tide. The road curves, but the history doesn't. Fort Point waits below, and the bay opens ahead. This descent isn't just distance, it's time, and time still speaks. Before the bridge, Fort Point stood alone, granite against tide, fog, and time. Then came the South Tower, steel rising beside brick. The old fort wasn't erased, it was framed. These photos tell a story, not of replacement, but endurance. The bridge didn't bury Fort Point, it was built around it. Before the views, this road served the Presidio's edge, military access, coastal logistics, a seam between defense and tide. It wasn't built for leisure, it was built for readiness. The bluff above held batteries, the shoreline below held watch. Now it's quiet, but the alignment remains. Stopped at the threshold, granite below, steel above. The arch doesn't crush the fort, it crowns it. From the rooftop, the view shifts. The bridge curves overhead like a held breath. These photos capture it. Fort Point didn't resist the bridge. It endured it. And now it frames the story. Fort Point was nearly demolished when they built the Golden Gate Bridge. But after public pushback, the design changed. The arch was added to save the fort. It's the only third system fort on the West Coast, built by hand in the 1850s by miners turned masons. No battles were fought here, but it still stands guard. Inside, there are tunnels, ghost stories, and echoes of a defense plan that never saw war. This view has held more than history. It's held stories, directors, actors, crews, scenes staged against granite and steel, the bridge above, the fort below. It's been walked, filmed, remembered, a frame that never needed adjusting. We're leaving Fort Point now. The bridge feels quieter than it should be. Maybe it's the absence of Robin, the soul who once gave the city its laugh track and its ache. His heart was tied to this land, woven in the fog, the hills, the pulse of the marina. That laughter we all leaned on. It masked a pain we all carry now in silence. I feel his weight in everything around me, not just as a performer, but as a presence, an undeniable influence on history, on a city that lost something rare. Not just a man, but a misunderstood energy. One that made us feel seen, even when we didn't know how to ask for it. We're retracing our steps now, leaving behind the fort's rigid geometry and heading towards something more fluid. Marina Drive runs like a seam between what was once militarized and what's now reclaimed. The white buildings stand like sentinels, but ahead the landscape softens. The field is coming. Not yet, but soon. We're not climbing back up. We're cutting through, choosing the low road, the open one. Past the old life-saving stations, now home to the greater Farallon Sanctuary, we enter a zone of transformation. These buildings once watched the tides for danger. Just beyond them, the land took flight. This stretch used to be lined with army warehouses, long gone, but the road still follows their footprint. You can feel it in the spacing, the way the wind moves through. It's a corridor of absence, the Presidio's bones rearranged. These stills show what civilian eyes rarely saw, the bones of a military airfield, the geometry of defense, and the quiet ambition of flight. Before the grass, before the joggers, before the field was reclaimed. Crissy Field began as the Army's first air coast defense station on the Pacific. Flat reclaimed land, once a racetrack, became a launch pad for early aviation. Between the wars, this was a proving ground. Long-distance flights, seaplane hangars, barracks for pilots who mapped to the sky before satellites did. This was once a part of Crissy Field's airstrip. Army pilots trained here in the 1920s. Beneath the gravel, it's still military ground, emptied but not erased. At the far end of the field, the path meets the pavement. We're back in the grid now, approaching a building that once stocked the essentials for Presidio life, the old post exchange. Groceries, gear, gossip. Today it's sports basement, but the bones are military. You can still read the walls. This stretch used to be a blur, just a road to Lombard, but something always caught my eye. Just beyond the cyclone fence, half swallowed by trees, were the batteries, Slaughter, Blaney, forgotten names, ghosts in the green. I didn't know what they were, not really, but they stayed with me, a question I kept riding past. Then came the tunnel tops. They tore out the old roads, rerouted the traffic, and gave the land back, not just to the people, but to the past. They didn't erase it, they revealed it. These stills tell a story. The span being built, the bend towards Lombard, the view from the cemetery, the construction, the redirection, and finally the reveal. Batteries unburied, tunnels repurposed, a place once passed through, now a place to arrive. From the tunnel tops, the trail opens wide, sky above, history below. This isn't just a park. It's a scene stitched between past and present, beneath the soil, buried batteries, bunkers, and the bones of old command. Above it, reclaimed space, open air, and the quiet hum of healing. I ride through it not just to move forward, but to remember what held the line before me. Now into the heart of the Presidio, businesses like ILM now house here. I ride past the ghosts of the cinematic world. I ride through a place that once guarded the edge of a continent. The Presidio never fired a single shot in anger, but it stood ready, always, and now, so do we. This ride isn't just mine, it's a signal, a reminder that healing is possible, that movement is meaning, that the body, even when battered, can still carry a story worth telling. There are many of us reclaiming trails, some on foot, some on wheels, some in silence. We're all fighting to return to something that feels like life. Aging doesn't have to mean shrinking and withering away. It can mean expanding into wisdom, into resilience, into motion. We ride through memory, through erosion and restoration, through places that were nearly forgotten until someone showed up again. Not to conquer, not to mourn, but to witness. To move forward with what remains. Every turn, every crack in the pavement, every faded sign is part of the story. And we're still riding it, one trail at a time. If you've never seen these views, never walked these paths, maybe never will, I hope this video brings you closer to the bridge, to the Pacific, to the mural that watches over a slice of pizza and a city that never stopped protecting us. This place held the line, quietly, symbolically, and now, so do we.